Welcome back to Two Player Mode Podcast. This is your podcast where I, Danny, and along with Marco, the Gen Z guy, we talk about all things video games, obviously, because we're two player mode. So, two players in a mode.
Player two.
Player two. Well, I want to talk about today a game that has really grabbed my attention over the past probably year now. I think it came out in October of 2022. I didn't jump on it right away because I was a fool and I missed out on probably a lot of the early entry bits of the games, like the founding items that they might have thrown out. And of course, that game we're talking about is
Marvel Snap.
Marvel Snap. Now, for those of you who might not be familiar with Marvel Snap, I wanted to give you just a brief overview of what it is. So Marvel Snap, of course, is a dynamic digital card game that combines the rich lore of Marvel Universe with a fast-paced strategic gameplay. It distinguished itself through its innovative mechanics, broad appeal, and the pedigree of its own development team, which we'll get into in a little bit. So it's just, after all of that, it's just very fun to play.
Yeah, no, it definitely really is a fun game. You got me hooked on that game a little bit after, I don't know how long after you started it, but I definitely got addicted to that game. It was really fun. Still is really fun.
It is really fun. I tend to log in every day and play a few matches just to, because it's fun, but also because they have a wide variety of cards that they release every day, different variants. Now, if you're familiar with comic books, they issue a lot of variant covers. So there's like the main issue of a comic book, and then maybe they get different artists to come in and do a variant of that comic book cover. And they do that for the cards in this game as well. So each card can have several variants or different versions of that card, which makes it really exciting, especially if they have an artist that you really enjoy their work. If you see that artistry in the game, it's like, wow, it's really cool.
Yeah, I feel with the game, I've come to notice a lot of artists that I haven't really seen before. And it just really brings me to look for their designs when I'm reading comics and looking for their actual, like the character designs that come out and are shown through this game. I feel like it's an easy way for people to access and see all those different variants and all those different artworks kind of displayed. And you get to display your favorites. You get to have your favorite card right there out when you're battling other people. It's really cool.
Yeah, and not only the artists, but also the characters. So, of course, they have the iconic heroes like Spider-Man, Iron Man, Thor, the whole characters that people know of, right? Mainly because of like the MCU, the broader appeal of the movies that centered around Marvel Studios. But they also have lesser known characters in this game that is really, I think, bringing new life to these characters, because some of them that I've since gone to my Marvel app and started reading some of their comic books. So it's a really great, innovative way to get people more diving deeper into comics.
Yeah, no, it definitely brought me back to my comic book roots where I started. That definitely was a good, kind of like a feeling of reminiscence. I saw some of these characters, like, I know exactly where that came from. I know the book. I have that book. And it just made me want to go back and look at all those and reread them. Really, really. It's a good game. It does a lot for you.
It's a good game. Quote that. Well, I think all good games, of course, start with a great development team, and this is no exception, right? So, of course, this game was created and developed by, I think it was Second Dinner is the studio that released it. Have you heard of them before, or do you know anything about them?
No, I haven't heard much about them. As a matter of fact, I have, a little bit of the information in front of me about them that I am really just finding out for the first time. Yeah, so you had it right. They were developed by Second Dinner, and the studio was founded by a group of industry veterans who previously worked on some of the most popular titles in gaming, some including Ben Brode and Hamilton Chu, both of whom are known for their significant contributions to Blizzard Entertainments, which I do know of Blizzard. I have
Diablo.
heard of,
Yeah.
yeah, I have heard of them. Second Dinner was a first for me. Um, but I mean,
Second
just
dinner was a
hearing,
first. Sorry,
I
go
know I
ahead.
went straight to Second Dinner first. I mean, with this development company, I feel like they put a lot of love and work into the actual game and artwork. So it's a very visual card game as opposed to what I'm used to, compared to a few other card games that are out there on Android, PC, and what is it, iPhone?
Hmm.
And I don't know the technical term for iPhones.
iPhone.
Um, iPhones, yes. But yeah, I mean, honestly, with the actual gameplay itself, it feels like it makes me want to learn in a sense. It has like I like a very rudimentary mathematical element to its gameplay, which
Yeah.
I don't see very often.
Let's talk about the gameplay a little bit. I think one of its broader appeals, or its main, I guess, why people like it is because it's fast, right? Each round or match will last probably around 3 minutes. And so if someone's on the go, or someone has a couple minutes downtime and they just want a quick game to satisfy that itch for gaming, this is fits that bill perfectly, I think.
Oh yeah, no, it's really just it's designed when you start the game just to dive in real quick from the loading menu. You can hit quick play. You don't even need to look at anything else. It'll have all your cards selected, presets. So it's really just a quick, fast game that you can play, and it does offer longer gameplay mechanics such as like the
The
that
conquest.
other room. Yeah, the conquest. It
Hmm.
has its own basis for that, which I like. But I found myself using Marvel Snap, especially on my breaks at work. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I can just dive into a game really fast. It doesn't take long to load, and it's perfect. It has that fill of dopamine that you get when you game and you get to beat people, especially when you get good.
That's true. That's true. Now, this is, I guess, what they consider the free to play genre of gaming when it comes to mobile device games, where it's free to play, but then they have microtransactions within the game where you can purchase different cards and different variants, cosmetics for the game itself. Um, but that doesn't take away. I think it's for me. It's one of the few games where you could play for free for a long period of time and not be hindered by not spending money on it.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely seen that. I have not really spent a single penny on it. Besides, really, the only thing that actually I want to spend money on, but that's a bad habit of mine for any game, is the seasonal battle pass that comes out.
Hmm.
I see some battle passes that I'm just like, okay, that's a cool, new variant that I don't have. But I mean, with some of them, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. I absolutely want this one. The one that got me the most excited was when they were all about Loki. That was a fun season.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
the background cards, it was just, I love the designs. I love the Loki variants. They had a lot of options, which I liked.
Yeah, that was a cool one. I mean, right now they're doing a Avengers versus, when we're recording this, I should say. They're doing an Avengers versus X-Men, which is a great comic book series if you haven't read it. It's really a outstanding series. I read through a few issues of that even before this came out. So when I saw AVX, which is the abbreviation for it, I knew exactly what it was. And it's a really cool series. And I think what they introduced recently during Valentine's Day is an imbalance card scheme where, like, so if you for Valentine's Day, so they had like the Marvel couples. So they had Rescue, which is, Pepper Potts and Iron Man. If you play them together, you get bonus power points. So for Avengers versus X-Men, if you make a whole deck of Avengers, you get bonus points for using a certain amount of cards and locations. Same thing for the X-Men, which I think is a really cool addition to um the it so you don't just have cards from here, there, everywhere. It helps if you group them together, part of their team, which I find really cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely think they put a lot of thought into events such as those specifically. Um, and I love the fact that certain events do yield some pretty fun rewards that you can't really
Mhm.
get so easily. It's not like an easy thing that just anybody can get. And like the conquest, that final card that you can get after so
Yeah.
many purchases of leveling up, those are really fun. You know, sometimes you get some really rare cards that I don't see a lot of other users really getting because you have to play conquest, you know, and focus on that.
Yeah, it's not an easy task. I know because I have not yet finished the conquest. I get up to the infinity battle. I've gotten the highest I've gotten is like the semifinals of the infinity. Then I lose. Then I have to start all over again.
Yeah, I've pushed my rank as hard as I could, and I've made it to that ending conquest. I've made it to the very last bit, and I still every time I'm put up against someone that's just perfect for my deck and just destroys me every time. It
Yep.
is frustrating, and I have to go all the way back. Uh,
I understand. I understand. One of the great features of Marble Snap is their character animations and location animations. And I think they really, like you said, they put a lot of thought and love into this game in that each card, when you play it, has a separate, different little animation that is close to who the character is. And it varies all the time. And I think the developers are really going to great lengths to make sure it stays fresh. Because I know some games when they get developed, they get released, the developers are like washing their hands, they're done with it, on to the next game, right? So, but with Second Dinner and Marvel Snap, they're constantly improving, constantly tweaking the cards, constantly nerfing or buffing them, and it really makes it, I think, a better overall um enjoyment for the game.
oh yeah, talking about that, yes, 100%. They absolutely do that because going on little, you know, sporadic breaks, I get busy with work. I always come back to Marvel Snap and I always see improvements on the menu, improvements on the card menus. Recently, I told you I just got back onto Marvel Snap after, you know, a little hiatus. Um, and one of the things I had actually was hoping for and wanted was card variants, being able to select, you know, and
Mhm.
design it yourself with what you unlock. And that's
Yes.
exactly what I came back to, which was such like a refreshing feel
Yeah.
because I feel like the game developers here are really listening to the people playing the game, and they're not just taking any, you know, bad comments, they're taking the good comments and they're using that and building on it, which I really love. That's really amazing from game developers because you don't always get that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of listening, also introduced in this latest patch update from what you're talking about, the undo button, the undo and
Yes.
turn button, which I thought was so huge. So if you're not familiar with the game and you're just learning about this, you play your card, then you hit your end button. Before, that was it. You're set in stone with what you played. Now you can hit that button again to undo what you did as long as your opponent hadn't finished their turn, which is huge because for some reason or other, I always mistakenly put Mystique instead of Ironheart or something. And I just want to undo it, but after I hit it, I was like, no. So much for that
Yes,
game.
that is. I feel that I've done that so many times. I've hit that button so many times by accident after putting the wrong character, and then I'm stuck. And
Yeah,
this was such a refreshing coming into a match and saying, "Oh my gosh, I can undo my turn."
exactly. It is such a key thing. The other thing they introduced with this recent patch is the graveyard, which people have been asking for. So if you click on your little icon, you can see what your cards you have that have been destroyed or discarded. And that way, if you weren't paying attention and maybe something happened and you lost a card, but you didn't see which one it was before, you're like, I don't know which one it was. But now you can go check it, which I think is really cool because that way you know what you're not going to have access to.
Yeah, no, and that's something that a lot of card games already had. Um, the ability to go back. I mean, it's based off of what a lot of card games do normally, which is a real life card game. Of course, you can look at your graveyard and see the card that was discarded away. Not that you can do anything with it, but at least you know. That way there's no confusion. And I think that's an improvement. I think that little improvements like that are always going to keep this game fresh and always going to give it, something new for old and new gamers alike coming back to it or starting it for the first time.
Yeah.
Honestly, the game mechanics just seem to get a little bit smoother, and I like that it's feeling fresher every time I come back to it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think we should go back and do like a live stream battle of us, going toe to
We
toe.
can.
Show people.
I think once I get our Twitch channel set up, and for everyone out there, if you're listening, you get to this part of this episode, our Twitch channel will be Two Player Mode Podcast. So go start following it now. That way, when we're ready to do it, you can be the first ones watching us stream our Marvel Snap battles.
And if you do that, leave a comment while we're streaming live, when we're doing all that, and say, hey, I'm here from, episode 3 of Two Player Mode. You guys sent me over here. So we know
Right?
who listened and came over here from that.
Yes, definitely do that. It's because this is a community here at Two Player Mode. We do want your feedback. We do want to talk about games that you're interested in. So be sure to leave a comment on any of our socials. That way we know, maybe what direction we should steer this ship in. Going back to Marvel Snap, though, one of the last things I want to touch on really about how great this is the audio effects.
Yes.
And it's not, I mean, you can play it muted and it's just fine. But if you have headphones on and you have the sound effects on, it's just such a treat, I think. I mean, just hearing all the different, like I said, the sound effects they put in there, it just elevates the game that much more.
Oh yeah, I never play my game without sound effects. I'm the type of person that likes to have a little bit of music in the background, and I like that Marvel Snap does let me use like certain music apps with my setup, and I have it configured so the audio is just right. But I love the FX, and the visuals go with the FX, so it's very like hand in hand. It works really well. It's very smooth. Honestly, it's one of the best things of Marvel Snap.
Yeah, it is really great. I mean, Second Dinner and Marvel, they did a fantastic job with this. I've always been more of a Marvel fan anyway, so having this game, having access to all these characters to play, it just really makes my day brighter. Now, one last question for you. Do you have a favorite card besides Loki, because you already mentioned Loki, that you like to play?
Honestly, my favorite card right now has got to be the High Evolutionary.
Because of what he does to the other cards.
What he does to the other cards. For me, his effect is really cool. I think that's a really ingenious use for a card, that it's not just like, oh, you play this card and now your team's buffed. I don't even have to use them the entire game. I just have them in my deck. And my entire team is buffed and has all these cool new powers, which I really like because it makes me want to use the cards that don't start with powers, but turn out to be really fantastic when you play them right and you use them to build an awesome deck. And the High Evolutionary really gives me a lot of flexibility, because it's not just like a set card. It's a bunch of different cards, bunch of different, unique powers and abilities. Yeah. Honestly, if they buff him anymore, he's going to be too overpowered.
Yeah, he's a cool card. I like him. Definitely. Well, I think that wraps it up for this episode of Two Player Mode. Everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being a part of why we want to do this podcast. Stay tuned. Be sure for future episodes where, like I said, we're going to be talking with a writer who writes like the script for video games. We're going to be talking with an author who wrote a book about retro video games, which I think might even be one of our next upcoming topics: retro video games, like old school Super Mario Brothers type side-scrolling games, stuff like that. So thanks for tuning. Exactly. We could do some Contra or something. We're saving our progress and closing the chapter on today's adventure. And remember, every end screen is just the start of a new playthrough.
See you on the next level of 2-player mode.